The call for unlikely heroes. The silent void of space surrounding the alien outpost was deceptive. It appeared peaceful, serene even, but that illusion shattered when the emergency klaxons erupted. Inside the base, chaos reigned. Technicians scurried between consoles, officers barked commands, and holographic displays lit up with the ominous sight of an incoming warband. The invaders were ruthless marauders who enslaved entire worlds, and the outpost was next on their list. The base commander, a member of the fox-like Aurelus species, stood at the helm of this desperate station. Her voice carried a tremor as she addressed her team. Options. I need options. But the room was silent. Their defenses were laughable compared to the enemy fleet, and evacuation wasn't possible. In the corner of the command room, a pale-skinned alien scientist named Vel craned his elongated neck over a terminal. His species, the Limvax, was renowned for their methodical thinking, but his next words were anything but traditional. "Commander, there is a possibility," he began, hesitating. "Out with it," barked the commander. Vel swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Humans." The room fell silent. The word hung in the air like a forbidden incantation. The Aurelus commander narrowed her sharp, amber eyes. "Humans? The primitives from ZZ9. What do you mean?" Vel explained, fumbling over his words. He had been studying intercepted broadcasts from the small, unassuming planet known to its inhabitants as Earth. He had observed humans' peculiar behavior, their uncanny ability to adapt, to turn the mundane into the extraordinary. He recounted stories of humans using frying pans to fend off burglars, duct tape to repair spacecraft, and even their own bodies to outlast impossible conditions. "They have a saying," Vel said, pulling up a recording from Earth's internet. The screen displayed a human holding a strange contraption with a grin. The caption read, "Everything is a weapon if you're brave enough." The commander frowned. "You want me to bet the survival of this station on a handful of primitives." "They're not primitive," Vel corrected, his voice firmer now. "They're resourceful, and resourcefulness is what we need." Reluctantly, the commander agreed. With no other options and time running out, she authorized an emergency mission to Earth. A cloaked system hopper departed within the hour, carrying a crew of scouts who had little idea what to expect. Their mission: find humans capable of wielding chaos as a weapon. The search for unconventional allies. The system hopper descended into Earth's atmosphere under the cover of darkness. The crew, a mix of reptilian Heshkin and insectoid Zilth, were trained in stealth operations. However, this mission was unlike any they had undertaken. Instead of infiltrating high-security facilities or recovering stolen tech, they were looking for 4 humans willing to risk their lives for a species they had never met. Scanning the planet, they avoided densely populated areas, targeting remote regions to minimize detection. The first attempts were disastrous. A farmer fled screaming into the night at the sight of the Zilth scout, whose exoskeleton gleamed under the moonlight. A group of hikers responded with weapons of their own, forcing the team to retreat. After several failures, the crew stumbled upon a dusty stretch of road in the middle of nowhere. A weathered RV rumbled along, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside were 4 individuals, laughing and chatting over the hum of the engine. The scouts hesitated. These humans seemed ordinary, but Vel's research emphasized that appearances could be deceiving. Taking a chance, the system hopper descended directly in front of the vehicle, its cloaking field shimmering as it revealed itself. The RV screeched to a halt, its passengers spilling out with varying degrees of alarm. "What the hell is that?" One of them, a burly man with a military haircut, exclaimed. The Heshkin scout stepped forward, speaking in halting English thanks to a translation device. "We need help. Urgent." The humans stared, disbelief etched on their faces. Finally, a petite woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor crossed her arms. "Help with what?" "The agreement." The Zilth scout hesitated, its antennae twitching nervously. Enemy coming. Station. Will fall. Need. Your skills. Will pay. The burly man snorted. Skills. You don't even know who we are. The scout's glossy eyes darted between them. No choice. Time short. The humans exchanged glances. They were not ordinary civilians. Jack, the burly man, had served in special forces. Sarah, the petite woman, was a strategist with an uncanny knack for thinking several steps ahead. The other two, Mike and Alina, were both engineers with a penchant for tinkering. They had been on a road trip, taking a break from their respective lives, but now they faced a decision that could alter the course of their species. Aliens, Mike muttered, shaking his head. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm in. Jack grinned. Hell, it's not like we had anything better to do. Let's save an alien station. Sarah's gaze lingered on the scouts. You'd better be telling the truth. Because if you're not, you'll regret it. Within minutes, the humans were aboard the system hopper, their RV left abandoned on the desolate road. As the ship ascended, Earth faded into the distance, replaced by the endless expanse of stars. The humans felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. For the aliens, it was a gamble. For the humans, it was a challenge. Little did anyone realize, the galaxy had just invited its most unpredictable force into the fold. Everything is a weapon. The system hopper zipped through the stars, carrying its unusual cargo. 4 Earthlings with no idea of the chaos awaiting them. As they approached the alien outpost, the humans were ushered into a briefing room, its walls adorned with glowing holographic maps of the galaxy. The aliens' nervous energy was palpable, their movements jittery as they tried to explain the dire situation. Sarah stepped forward, her sharp eyes scanning the room. All right, lay it out for us. What are we up against? The base commander appeared on a large screen, her fox-like ears twitching as she addressed the humans. A war band of the Zuntrax species, a nomadic, marauding group infamous for enslaving entire systems, is closing in. They outgun us 10-1. If they reach us, we're finished. Jack leaned back in his chair, a cocky grin spreading across his face. So, we're outnumbered and outgunned. Sounds like a typical Tuesday. The aliens didn't understand the humor, but Vel, the scientist who had proposed recruiting the humans, cleared his throat. We've provided a collection of tools and devices we believe you can use. They're rudimentary by human standards, but let's see them. Sarah interrupted. The workshop of possibilities. The humans were escorted to a sprawling workshop, filled with an eclectic mix of gadgets, tools, and equipment. Plasma cutters, repair drones, magnetic grapplers, and other strange devices hummed softly, waiting to be used. To the aliens, it was a chaotic mess of untested equipment. To the humans, it was a playground. Jack picked up a plasma cutter and turned it over in his hands. Looks like a welding tool, but with a few tweaks, it could double as a high-powered sniper rifle. Alina, the engineer, was already knee-deep in a pile of discarded parts. She held up a small disc-shaped device. This is a proximity sensor, right? If we attach it to the drones and wire them to explode on contact. Boom. Instant mines. Vel watched in stunned silence as the humans moved through the workshop like kids in a candy store. Every tool they picked up became something new, something dangerous. Don't you need schematics? Vel asked hesitantly. Sarah smirked. Schematics? Nah, we make do with what we've got. The neural interface experiment. Among the equipment was a set of sleek headbands, the aliens' engineer helper neural interfaces. They were designed to enhance cognitive function, allowing wearers to visualize mechanical systems and solve problems faster. These won't work on humans, Vel warned. Our brain structures are different. Let's find out, Mike said, sliding one onto his head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his eyes widened. Whoa. What do you see? Sarah asked. It's like diagrams floating in my mind. I can see how to connect the parts. It's insane. Vel was flabbergasted. It shouldn't be possible. These are species-specific devices. Guess we're just full of surprises, Jack quipped, donning his own headband. Let's get to work. The plan takes shape. For the next several hours, the workshop buzzed with activity. The humans worked tirelessly, turning the alien tools into makeshift weapons of war. Jack led the charge in modifying the plasma cutters into long-range rifles. Sarah devised a strategy, using the station's debris field as both camouflage and a trap. Elena and Mike, powered by the neural interfaces, retrofitted drones into kamikaze units and reprogrammed maintenance bots to act as sentries. We'll turn the debris field into a death trap, Sarah explained, pointing to a holographic map of the area. The Zuntrax won't know what hit them. The aliens watched in awe. Their own engineers had deemed the debris field useless, yet the humans saw opportunity in chaos. Why do you do this? Vel asked Jack at one point, his curiosity overriding his professionalism. Jack shrugged. It's what we do. Humans adapt. You throw us in a bad situation, we figure a way out. Sometimes that means using whatever we've got. Sometimes that means turning junk into weapons. Vel looked at him, his large eyes filled with a mix of admiration and fear. You truly believe everything is a weapon. Jack smiled. Not just believe it. Live it. The calm before the storm. With the preparations complete, the station fell into an eerie quiet. The humans rested briefly, but their confidence was unshaken. The aliens, however, were on edge. What if it doesn't work? One of the engineers whispered to Vel. It will work, Vel replied, though his voice lacked conviction. In the observation deck, Sarah stood alone, staring out at the debris field. Jack joined her, holding 2 cups of something resembling coffee. Nervous. A little, Sarah admitted, but we've been in worse spots. Jack grinned. That's the spirit. Besides, these Zuntrax don't know what they're walking into. Sarah smirked. By the time we're done, they'll wish they'd never come. As the first blips appeared on the long-range scanners, the humans geared up. They had turned a hopeless outpost into a fortress, using nothing but alien scraps and human ingenuity. Now it was time to see if their plan would hold. The Zuntrax fleet was about to learn a hard truth. In the hands of a human, everything is a weapon. The first contact. The alien base buzzed with nervous energy as the Zuntrax fleet emerged on the long-range scanners. The holographic projection displayed their ships in an ominous red, vast and menacing, their formation a wall of destruction inching closer to the helpless outpost. The alien commander, her fox-like ears twitching in agitation, addressed the humans one final time. They will be here in less than an hour. Are you certain this plan will work? Sarah adjusted her gear, her eyes cold and focused. It's not a plan. It's a trap. And trust me, they'll never see it coming. Jack clapped the commander on the shoulder. Relax, Commander. Humans are at their best when our backs are against the wall. The calm before the chaos. The debris field surrounding the station hung in the void like a junkyard in zero gravity. It was a mess of discarded hull fragments, outdated satellites, and random space trash. Exactly what the humans needed. The once useless field had been transformed into a sprawling web of booby traps and improvised weapons. Mike and Elena were on the station's control deck, monitoring the remote-controlled drones scattered across the field. Each drone was loaded with explosives and disguised among the debris. Drones are armed, Mike said, his fingers flying across the alien console. Let's see how they like our little fireworks display. Elena smirked. I'd wired some of the proximity mines to look like parts of their own ships. If they salvage, they'll explode. If they avoid them, it'll funnel them right where we want them. Down in the docking bay, Jack led the ground team, armed with plasma rifles they had modified from the aliens' tools. He barked orders, ensuring every corner of the base was fortified. Sarah, meanwhile, prepared to pilot one of the station's older, barely functional fighter ships. It wasn't much, but with her neural interface and ingenuity, it would be deadly. The first strike. As the Zuntrax ships entered the debris field, their sleek, angular hulls glinted in the starlight. Their commanders were confident. A station this small posed no threat to their overwhelming firepower. "Begin the advance," the Zuntrax fleet leader ordered. The first explosions rocked their formation, catching them completely off guard. Hidden mines detonated as their ships brushed too close, sending shockwaves through their ranks. "What is this?" one Zuntrax officer growled. "The debris is." Before he could finish, a wave of kamikaze drones swarmed their lead ship. Controlled remotely by Mike and Alina, the drones darted like angry wasps, slamming into critical points on the hull. One by one, the lead ships faltered. The fleet scrambled to regroup, but the humans' traps were relentless. Magnetic grapplers snagged smaller vessels, slamming them into larger ones. Decoy mines lured ships into narrow choke points, where more explosives awaited. The Zuntrax counterattack. The enemy adapted quickly, using their advanced scanners to identify some of the traps. Their ships began firing indiscriminately, clearing paths through the debris field. But every victory was short-lived. Sarah's fighter burst onto the scene, weaving through the chaos. The neural interface linked her mind directly to the ship's systems, making her reactions faster than any Zuntrax pilot could match. She targeted an enemy frigate, her modified plasma cannons hammering its engines. The ship's shields flickered before collapsing, leaving it vulnerable to a follow-up strike. "Sarah, you've got two on your tail." Mike's voice crackled through the comms. "Let them follow," she replied coolly. Leading the pursuing ships into a dense cluster of debris, she activated another trap. A chain reaction of mines detonated, consuming the enemy ships in a fiery cascade. On the ground, while the Zuntrax focused on the space battle, Jack's ground team prepared for a possible boarding attempt. When the first enemy dropship breached the station, it was met with a hail of improvised weaponry. Jack's plasma rifle spat deadly beams of energy, while his team used reprogrammed maintenance bots to patrol the corridors, ambushing invaders with stunning precision. "Hold the line," Jack bellowed, taking cover behind a barricade. One Zuntrax warrior charged at him, wielding a massive energy blade. Jack waited until the last moment, then swung a modified wrench, striking the blade's hilt. The weapon shorted out, and with a swift counterattack, Jack sent the warrior sprawling. "See, everything's a weapon," he muttered, tossing the wrench to a teammate, turning the tide. As the battle raged, the humans' ingenuity began to turn the tide. The Zuntrax fleet, though larger and more advanced, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable tactics. Their commanders were used to fighting structured militaries, not a handful of improvising lunatics. Vel, watching from the control deck with the other aliens, was awestruck. "They're winning," he whispered. "They're actually winning." The base commander's eyes remained on the screen, her tail flicking with nervous energy. "For now. But how much longer can they keep this up?" The final gambit. Sarah's voice crackled over the comms. "The flagship is exposed. If we take it out, the rest will retreat." "Got it," Jack replied. "We'll handle the ground. You finish this." As Sarah's fighter rocketed toward the enemy flagship, Jack's team fended off the last wave of boarders. Explosions rippled through the station as the Zuntrax made one final push, but the humans held firm. Sarah, meanwhile, dove straight into the heart of the fleet, her ship a blur of motion. She targeted the flagship's bridge, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. The shields flickered and failed, and with one final shot, the bridge exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The Zuntrax fleet faltered. Their flagship destroyed, their morale shattered. They began to retreat. The battle was over. The outpost, though battered and scarred, had survived. The aliens stared at the humans with a mix of awe and disbelief. Jack wiped soot from his face, flashing a tired grin. "Told you, everything's a weapon." This part builds on the humans' ingenuity. showcasing their unpredictable tactics and resourcefulness, while raising the stakes for an engaging, action-packed narrative. The turning tide. The aftermath of the initial clash left the Zuntrax fleet reeling, but their commanders were quick to adapt. Within minutes, the invaders reorganized their forces, analyzing the debris field and neutralizing some of the humans' traps. What they didn't anticipate, however, was the relentless creativity of their newfound adversaries. In the command center of the alien base, Vel watched the holographic display with wide eyes. The red markers representing the Zuntrax ships still outnumbered the outpost's forces tenfold. "They're learning," he said nervously, his elongated fingers gripping the console. Sarah, standing tall beside him, crossed her arms. "Let them. It won't matter." Human resilience under fire. Out in the debris field, Sarah's fighter danced between wreckage and enemy fire, her neural interface giving her a razor-sharp edge. The Zuntrax had begun targeting her specifically, deploying small, agile interceptors to cut off her movements. "You want to play tag?" Sarah muttered, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Let's play." She pushed her fighter into a steep dive, weaving through a dense patch of debris. The interceptors followed, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Sarah triggered a hidden drone mine, then rolled her fighter hard to the left. The explosion tore through the chasing ships, leaving only fire and twisted metal in her wake. Back at the base, Mike and Elena worked tirelessly to coordinate the traps they had scattered throughout the field. Using a combination of remote controls and the neural interfaces, they redirected drones, rearmed mines, and hacked into damaged Zuntrax ships. "I got a new trick," Elena said, her voice tinged with excitement. "I rigged one of their disabled fighters to broadcast fake distress signals. Let's see if they take the bait." A nearby Zuntrax ship moved to investigate the signal, only to trigger a chain reaction of mines Elena had planted around the wreck. The resulting explosion lit up the holographic display, prompting a cheer from the control room. The Zuntrax counterattack. Despite the human successes, the Zuntrax adapted. Their scanners began identifying and dismantling some of the humans' traps. They deployed specialized drones to clear paths through the debris field, creating a direct route to the outpost. The base shuddered as the first wave of Zuntrax fighters began their assault. The shields held, but barely. "Commander," an alien technician called out, "the shield matrix is destabilizing. We can't hold much longer." Jack's voice crackled over the comms. "Then it's time to take the fight to them." The boarding party. Jack led a strike team of humans and aliens on a daring boarding mission. Using a captured Zuntrax dropship, they infiltrated one of the larger enemy vessels. The humans had armed themselves with their modified weapons, while the aliens carried standard-issue plasma pistols. "Stick together," Jack ordered as the dropship docked. "And remember, everything here is a weapon. If you run out of ammo, get creative." The team stormed into the Zuntrax ship, taking the invaders by surprise. Jack's plasma rifle hummed as he fired, each shot precise and deadly. Sarah's voice guided them through the comms, using her interface to map the ship's interior and identify weak points. Elena, always the tinkerer, hacked into a nearby console, disabling the ship's automated defenses. "You're clear to the engine room," she said. As they advanced, the Zuntrax regrouped, their warriors towering over the smaller humans. But size wasn't enough to save them. Jack grabbed a fallen Zuntrax's shield and used it to deflect incoming fire. Another human hurled a modified drone, its makeshift explosive payload detonating in the midst of the enemy forces. The turning point. The boarding team reached the engine room, where Elena planted charges on the ship's core. "We've got 5 minutes," she warned. The team raced back to their dropship, fighting off waves of Zuntrax along the way. Jack covered their retreat, using a repurposed energy blade to cut through the advancing warriors. As they launched back toward the base, the Zuntrax ship erupted in a brilliant explosion. The blast disrupted the fleet's formation, creating an opening for the humans to strike. The debris field strikes back. With the enemy fleet in disarray, Sarah launched her final gambit. Using the remaining mines and drones, she funneled the Zuntrax ships into a narrow corridor of debris. Mike, monitoring from the base, grinned. "They're right where we want them." Sarah triggered the trap, releasing a torrent of magnetic grapplers and explosive charges. The debris field came alive, tearing through the Zuntrax ships like a swarm of metal piranhas. The enemy fleet began to retreat, their confidence shattered. Victory, but at a cost. The humans and aliens watched in silence as the remaining Zuntrax ships flooded into the void. Cheers erupted in the command center, but the humans were subdued. Jack leaned against a console, exhaustion etched into his face. "We held them off, but they'll be back. And next time, they'll be smarter." Vel approached him, his expression a mix of awe and gratitude. "You saved us. Without you, we wouldn't have survived." Jack nodded, his gaze distant. "This was just one battle. If you want to survive the next one, you'd better learn to think like us." The victory was hard fought, but the humans knew it was only the beginning. The Zuntrax would return, and the galaxy wasn't ready for what was coming next. Aftermath and revelation. The battlefield was eerily quiet now. Where once the debris field had been alive with explosions and chaos, there was now only the drifting wreckage of destroyed Zuntrax ships. Inside the alien outpost, a tentative calm settled, punctuated by the hum of repair drones and the occasional cheer from the crew. Victory had been achieved, but it felt fragile, like a flame flickering in the wind. In the command center, the base commander stood amidst the aftermath, her ears twitching as she scanned the glowing holographic map. Most of the red blips, the Zuntrax ships, were gone. Only a few scattered survivors retreated beyond the system's edge. "Status report," she said, her voice firm despite the exhaustion weighing on her. "Our shields are at 23%, and several sections of the station sustained significant damage," a technician replied. "But we're intact. No casualties reported among our crew." The commander exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She turned to the humans, who stood nearby, their faces smeared with soot and sweat. "Against all odds," she said, her voice carrying both admiration and disbelief, "you've done it. You saved us." The heroes reflect. Jack, leaning casually against a console, gave a tired grin. "Don't thank us yet. We just kicked the can down the road. The Zuntrax will regroup. They'll come back with more ships and better strategies." Sarah, her sharp gaze focused on the holographic map, nodded in agreement. "Jack's right. This was a victory, but it was also a warning. They underestimated us this time. Next time they won't." Vel, the scientist who had first proposed enlisting the humans, stepped forward. His elongated fingers trembled as he addressed them. "Your ingenuity is beyond anything we anticipated. You took tools we considered useless and turned them into weapons that saved this station. How? How is that possible?" Jack's smirk faded, replaced by a more serious expression. "It's simple. Humans adapt. You throw us into a problem, and we figure out a way to survive. We don't have the luxury of giving up." Elena, standing beside him, added, "And we don't see things the way you do. You look at a plasma cutter and think, that's for welding. We look at it and think, how can we use this to take down a ship?" Vel's large, reflective eyes widened as he absorbed their words. "You see potential in everything," he said softly. "Exactly," Sarah said. "To us, everything is a weapon. It's just a matter of how you use it." The toll of victory. As repairs continued throughout the station, the humans took a moment to reflect. In the mess hall, the team sat around a table piled with unfamiliar alien food. Jack poked at his plate with a utensil resembling a spork, his expression skeptical. "This better not be some weird alien delicacy," he muttered. "It's sustenance," Vel said, sitting across from him. "It contains all necessary nutrients." Jack shrugged and took a bite. "Tastes like cardboard, but I've had worse." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her gaze distant. We pulled it off, but just barely. The Zuntrax aren't the kind of enemy you beat once and forget about. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be ready for our tricks. Alina nodded, tapping her fork against her plate. And let's not forget, we're still light years away from Earth. No backup, no reinforcements, just us and this station. Vel hesitated before speaking. Perhaps it's time to consider an alliance. Your ingenuity, combined with our resources, could turn the tide in this war. A proposition. Later, in the command center, the humans stood before the base commander and a gathering of senior officers. The commander's ears twitched nervously as she addressed them. You have proven yourselves to be extraordinary. Your actions today saved countless lives. But you're right, the Zuntrax will return. And when they do, we'll need more than improvised weapons and lucky gambits. Jack crossed his arms. You're suggesting a partnership. Yes, the commander said. An alliance. Your species has a unique perspective, a way of turning the impossible into reality. If we work together, we could stand a chance against the Zuntrax. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And what does this alliance look like? We're not just going to be your weapon makers. The commander nodded. Of course, this would be a true partnership. We would share technology, knowledge, and resources. Together, we could build a force capable of defending not just this outpost, but the entire galaxy. The humans exchanged glances. They had come here as a last-minute gamble, a desperate measure to save a dying station. Now, they were being asked to shape the future of an interstellar war. Aftermath and revelation. The battlefield was eerily quiet now. Where once the debris field had been alive with explosions and chaos, there was now only the drifting wreckage of destroyed Zuntrax ships. Inside the alien outpost, a tentative calm settled, punctuated by the hum of repair drones and the occasional cheer from the crew. Victory had been achieved, but it felt fragile, like a flame flickering in the wind. In the command center, the base commander stood amidst the aftermath, her ears twitching as she scanned the glowing holographic map. Most of the red blips, the Zuntrax ships, were gone. Only a few scattered survivors retreated beyond the system's edge. Status report, she said, her voice firm despite the exhaustion weighing on her. Our shields are at 23%, and several sections of the station sustained significant damage, a technician replied. But we're intact. No casualties reported among our crew. The commander exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She turned to the humans, who stood nearby, their faces smeared with soot and sweat. Against all odds, she said, her voice carrying both admiration and disbelief. You've done it. You saved us. The heroes reflect. Jack, leaning casually against a console, gave a tired grin. Don't thank us yet. We just kicked the can down the road. The Zuntrax will regroup. They'll come back with more ships and better strategies. Sarah, her sharp gaze focused on the holographic map, nodded in agreement. Jack's right. This was a victory, but it was also a warning. They underestimated us this time. Next time they won't. Vel, the scientist who had first proposed enlisting the humans, stepped forward. His elongated fingers trembled as he addressed them. Your ingenuity is beyond anything we anticipated. You took tools we considered useless and turned them into weapons that saved this station. How? How is that possible? Jack's smirk faded, replaced by a more serious expression. It's simple. Humans adapt. You throw us into a problem, and we figure out a way to survive. We don't have the luxury of giving up. Alina, standing beside him, added, and we don't see things the way you do. You look at a plasma cutter and think, that's for welding. We look at it and think, how can we use this to take down a ship? Vel's large, reflective eyes widened as he absorbed their words. You see potential in everything, he said softly. Exactly, Sarah said. To us, everything is a weapon. It's just a matter of how you use it. The toll of victory. As repairs continued throughout the station, the humans took a moment to reflect. In the mess hall, the team sat around a table piled with unfamiliar alien food. Jack poked at his plate with a utensil resembling a spork, his expression skeptical. "This better not be some weird alien delicacy," he muttered. "It's sustenance," Vel said, sitting across from him. "It contains all necessary nutrients." Jack shrugged and took a bite. "Tastes like cardboard, but I've had worse." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her gaze distant. "We pulled it off, but just barely. The Zuntrax aren't the kind of enemy you beat once and forget about. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." Alina nodded, tapping her fork against her plate. "And let's not forget, we're still light years away from Earth. No backup, no reinforcements, just us and this station." Vel hesitated before speaking. "Perhaps it's time to consider an alliance. Your ingenuity, combined with our resources, could turn the tide in this war." A proposition. Later, in the command center, the humans stood before the base commander and a gathering of senior officers. The commander's ears twitched nervously as she addressed them. "You have proven yourselves to be extraordinary. Your actions today saved countless lives. But you're right, the Zuntrax will return. And when they do, we'll need more than improvised weapons and lucky gambits." Jack crossed his arms. "You're suggesting a partnership?" "Yes," the commander said. "An alliance. Your species has a unique perspective, a way of turning the impossible into reality. If we work together, we could stand a chance against the Zuntrax." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And what does this alliance look like? We're not just going to be your weapon makers." The commander nodded. "Of course, this would be a true partnership. We would share technology, knowledge, and resources. Together, we could build a force capable of defending not just this outpost, but the entire galaxy." The humans exchanged glances. They had come here as a last-minute gamble, a desperate measure to save a dying station. Now, they were being asked to shape the future of an interstellar war. A new resolve. After some deliberation, Sarah stepped forward. "We'll consider your offer, but if we do this, it's on our terms. Humans don't do well as someone else's pawns." The commander inclined her head in agreement. "Understood. For now, rest. You've earned it." As the humans left the command center, Vel lingered behind, his gaze fixed on the holographic display of the debris field. "They are extraordinary," he murmured. The commander's ears twitched. "They are dangerous. But perhaps that's exactly what we need." Preparing for the future. In the days that followed, the station began to transform. Inspired by the humans' ingenuity, the aliens rethought their approach to defense. Maintenance bots were retrofitted into sentries, cargo drones became patrol units, and even the debris field was incorporated into the station's permanent defenses. The humans, meanwhile, shared their knowledge sparingly, teaching the aliens how to think outside the box. It wasn't about handing over technology. It was about changing their mindset. As Jack watched the station's progress from the observation deck, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of pride. "Looks like they're learning," he said. Sarah joined him, her expression serious. "Let's hope it's enough. Because the Zuntrax will be back. And next time, we won't just need clever tricks. We'll need an army." Jack nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Then we better get to work." The battle was won, but the war was far from over. For the humans and their newfound allies, this was only the beginning of the fight that would reshape the galaxy. The ripple effect. Word of the humans' improbable victory spread far beyond the quiet confines of the alien outpost. Across the galaxy, whispers of their ingenuity and resourcefulness echoed through diplomatic chambers, backroom deals, and even the Zuntrax fleet's remaining strongholds. The phrase, "everything is a weapon to a human," became more than a simple saying. It was a legend in the making. Inside the outpost, the humans and their alien allies worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable retaliation. But as they planned for the future, the effects of their actions began to ripple outward in ways no one could have anticipated. A fractured enemy. Deep within the Zuntrax command ship, the atmosphere was tense. The warlord in charge of the failed attack, a towering figure of dark scales and sharp mandibles, slammed his claws into the central console. How did a backwater station defeat an entire fleet? He roared, his voice reverberating through the chamber. One of his subordinates, a smaller Zuntrax with a nervous twitch, hesitated before responding. The reports indicate human involvement. They used unconventional tactics, turning the debris field into a weaponized zone. The warlord snarled. Humans, those primitives. Yes, my lord. It seems their adaptability and unpredictability gave them an advantage. They are not to be underestimated. The warlord's mandibles clicked in frustration. If they are so dangerous, then we will crush them before they spread their influence further. Prepare the fleet. We will return stronger. But even within the Zuntrax ranks, doubt began to fester. Rumors of the humans' ingenuity shook the morale of their warriors. Some began to question whether they were truly prepared to face such an unpredictable foe again. An invitation from the stars. Back at the outpost, the humans found themselves inundated with visitors. Representatives from other alien species began arriving, eager to meet the creatures who had turned trash into triumph. One delegation, a sleek and amphibious species called the Venar, approached Jack and Sarah in the bustling command center. "We've heard of your talents," the Venar ambassador said, her voice like the ripple of water. "Our own defenses are insufficient against the Zuntrax. Will you teach us your methods?" Jack exchanged a glance with Sarah. "We're not teachers," he said bluntly, "but we can show you how to think like us." The ambassador tilted her head, her luminous eyes flickering with intrigue. "And how do humans think?" Sarah smiled. Outside the box, the humans began hosting training sessions, teaching the alien delegations how to innovate, improvise, and adapt. The workshops were chaotic but effective. Species that had relied on rigid protocols and established hierarchies found themselves embracing creativity for the first time, strengthening the alliance. As more species joined the effort, the outpost transformed into a hub of innovation. The debris field, once a symbol of neglect, became a testament to ingenuity. Engineers from across the galaxy collaborated to enhance the station's defenses, incorporating human-inspired designs that defied conventional logic. Elena, overseeing the modifications, marveled at the progress. This is what happens when you stop thinking about what something's supposed to do and start thinking about what it could do. Mike grinned, holding up a repurposed maintenance drone, armed with a plasma cutter. "Like this little guy, he's supposed to clean vents, but now he's a one-drone demolition team." Even Vel, the once cautious scientist, found himself swept up in the humans' infectious energy. He presented a prototype energy shield, inspired by human riot shields, that could be deployed quickly in battle. "This is brilliant," Jack said, testing the shield. "See, you're starting to think like us." The weight of leadership. But as the alliance grew, so did the pressure on the humans. Their role as accidental leaders of a galactic resistance weighed heavily on them. In a rare moment of quiet, Sarah stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Jack joined her, holding 2 cups of alien coffee. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, handing her a cup. Sarah sighed. "We've started something bigger than us. I mean, look at this place. It's not just an outpost anymore. It's a movement, and we're at the center of it." Jack sipped his coffee, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, but isn't that what we do? Take the impossible and make it work." Sarah smiled faintly. "I just hope it's enough. The Zuntrax aren't going to sit around and let this alliance grow." "They'll come," Jack said, his voice steady. "And when they do, we'll be ready." The Zuntrax strike back. Unbeknownst to the outpost, the Zuntrax were already preparing their next move. Using data from the previous battle, They developed countermeasures against the humans' tactics. In a darkened war chamber, the Zuntrax warlord addressed his council. "We will not repeat the mistakes of the past," he growled. "This time, we will crush the humans and their pathetic allies. Prepare the assault fleet. We will wipe them from existence." The council members nodded, their eyes gleaming with determination. But even among them, whispers of doubt lingered. A galaxy on the brink. Back at the outpost, preparations for the inevitable battle continued. New alliances were forged, new defenses were built, and new weapons were tested. Sarah, Jack, Elena, and Mike stood together in the bustling command center, their bond stronger than ever. "This isn't just about us anymore," Sarah said. "We're fighting for something bigger now, for every species that's been stepped on by the Zuntrax." Jack nodded. "Then let's make sure they remember this outpost, not as a place that survived, but as the place that fought back." The stage was set. The galaxy held its breath. And as the humans prepared to face the Zuntrax once again, they knew one thing for certain. The enemy might have the numbers, but they had the will and the creativity to fight back.